right. All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Turn the Tassel Show. My name is Stephen Ampersand. I'm your host. And as always, I'm here to help you and the people you love get to and through college, university, or the trade schools earlier on time with minimum to no debt. And that's exactly what we're talking about tonight. We're going to talk once again about this student loan debt crisis and try to make some sense of this thing. You know, we're upwards of $1.75 trillion. Let me repeat that, $1.75 trillion in student loan debt and counting. It's just astronomical. And so, you know, the news came out yesterday-ish about Biden and his administration doing some sort of extension to the loan forgiveness program that would extend about $8 billion with a B dollars of student loan debt forgiveness to individuals, select individuals who are working in some sort of nonprofit or public sector serving underserved, underrepresented communities. These individuals will have an opportunity to have student loans forgiven. So, you know, I'll go ahead and I'll clap that up. You know, something's better than nothing, I guess. You know, if you're in that group, if you're someone who's serving in a nonprofit somewhere, you went and got a $300,000 political science degree, and now you're working for, you know, Save the Ospreys, you know, organization, and somehow that's serving the public, and you know, but you were only making, you know, $32,000 a year as the director of, you know, Save the Ospreys, right? You know, you do that for a decade, and you know, you can get your loans forgiven, right? As long as you meet certain criterion, right? In other words, you have to make sure that you have made regular student loan payments month after month without missing for 10 consecutive months, and that would either be income-based repayment, right? So they look, oh, well, you only make $32,000 a year, so we're going to make your payment on your $300,000 a year loan a mere $178 a month, let's say. So you got to pay $178 a month. So as long as you make your $178 a month payment month after month for 10 consecutive years, you're going to be fine. Or if you were doing so well over at Save the Ospreys, but for whatever reason, they weren't getting the donations that they needed, and that puts you in a tenuous situation. And then finally, the shoe dropped, and the pandemic hit, and now the doors are closed, and you no longer have that job. Now you have no income, so you have to contact your loan servicer, and your loan servicer says, hey, what's going on? And you tell your loan servicer, hey, I lost my job. And they're like, oh, really? So sorry about that. Let's go ahead and get you the paperwork you need to sign off on to modify your payment so that it adjusts to reflect your current income. Okay, but I just told you that my income is zero. Oh, hey, no worry. That just means that your month after month payment is going to be $0. And you're like, yay. Oh, my goodness. I wish I had lost my job sooner. All right, so already you can see there's a problem with this program, right? The problem is, look at how that disincentivizes people from going to work. Just think about that. I can go to work and make my $32,000 a year and slave away for a decade and make a payment that doesn't even cover the interest. It doesn't even cover the interest that's accruing on the account, right? I can do that. And, you know, do that for 10 years. And then, you know, maybe have it forgiven. if nothing goes sideways, if an administration doesn't change over the course of that decade, and we know it's going to have the potential to change 2 times at minimum over a 10-year period, right? Because we vote for the presidential election every 4 years, right? So there's a lot of stuff that can happen that can derail that 10-year plan, right? And again, you're making payments that aren't touching the interest. It's rolling and rolling and rolling. It's accruing and accruing and accruing. Your $0 a month payment, if you are one of those individuals that lost their job in the pandemic, your $0 per month payment that's being credited towards your overall 10-year repayment period is not addressing the debt. The debt is still growing while you're in repayment at $0 a month. Come on, people. I mean, right? That's not a solution. That's not a solution, right? I've talked about this so many times. If you did everything right and you got to the point where you did get your student loans forgiven, well, if you're making $0 a month in my scenario, and you stay, first of all, you're incentivized to stay in that space, aren't you? So you're incentivized to hang out in a lack of employment status for the balance of the decade, right? Because you don't have to make any payments, and then you'll be able to, not have to worry about that, right? So that incentivizes people not to work for a decade. Let's be honest. Meanwhile, it's accruing, it's growing, it's growing, it's accruing. When they finally forgive it at the end of that 10-year period, they're going to send you a 1099-G. They're going to credit what they forgave you. They're going to credit that as income in the tax year that it gets forgiven. So how does that help you? How does it help you to move the debt from the Department of Education that won't let you charge it off except for extreme outlying cases that ultimately can garnish your wages, ultimately can do a lot of measures to, they can snatch your federal income tax return year over year, right? They can do a lot of things to recoup that money. How does it help you to move it from that agency over to and mind you, before I even get there, mind you, that agency is accruing your interest on a monthly basis, right? So it's rolling every month, right? Why would you move it from the Federal Department of Education, from that agency, over to the IRS, to that agency? Why would you do that? The IRS has the ability to do all the things that the Department of Education can do and will do, and they can throw you in jail. And their interest accrues daily. This is not a good plan. It's not a good plan. So what I'm going to do is I want to read, I guess, but I sort of play this article. This article comes from Forbes and Forbes.com. And it says Biden administration may extend life-changing student loan forgiveness initiative, but questions remain. I'm gonna let this play, and I'll jump in periodically, perhaps, but I'm gonna let this play so that we can unpack this a little bit more. And so, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and cut to camera number 2.
Biden administration may extend life-changing student loan forgiveness initiative, but questions remain. By Adam S. Minsky. The Biden administration has approved billions of dollars in student loan forgiveness under an expansion of a popular program for borrowers working in public service careers.
Okay, stop right there. Let me jump in real quick. Here I am. There we go. Okay. So again, public service folks. Okay, what does that do for everybody else? Nothing. We're talking about $8 billion against $1.75 trillion. Why are we touting this? What does that mean for all the other people that went and got non-public sector public serving jobs? What are they supposed to do? But okay.
The initiative is temporary and set to end in just a few months. Advocates are increasingly sounding the alarm that thousands of borrowers may not even realize that they qualify for student loan forgiveness.
All right. Didn't they just say this is a wildly popular program? Come on, man. What in the world? I thought it was wildly popular, but folks may not know. How can you be wildly popular and people not know? Doesn't add up. Shout out to CGA. If things don't add up, start subtracting. Shout out to Coach Greg Adams.
They may lose out on critical relief once the program ends. Top Biden administration officials have suggested that an extension if possible, but the messaging has been mixed. Here's where things stand. Over $8 billion in student loan forgiveness under expanded program for public service workers. Under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, PSLF, program, federal student loan borrowers who commit to working 10 years or more in the nonprofit or public sector can potentially get their federal student loans completely forgiven.
Wait a minute. Wait. I got to come back for this. All right. Wait a minute. Did you hear that? Did you catch that language? Potentially. Come on, man. This stuff is laughable. Potentially. In other words, it ain't guaranteed, people. It ain't guaranteed. it's not a lock. All right. Potentially. I just want to point that out. All right. Let's keep going.
In 2007, PSLF has suffered from complicated eligibility rules, poor oversight in administration, and dismal approval rates that hovered in the 1% to 2% range.
Yeah.
To address the
let's not gloss over that either. I won't come back for this, but just to say, right? What government program are you aware of that's run efficiently and effectively? I'll wait. Yeah. Yeah. There ain't none. So you gonna put your hopes and dreams in that? Just saying.
Shortcomings. In October, the Biden administration announced the Limited PSLF Waiver Initiative, which temporarily eases the PSLF program's strict eligibility rules to allow past loan periods that otherwise would have been rejected under the original program rules to count towards PSLF. This includes payments made on non-qualifying federal loans, payments made under non-qualifying repayment plans, and certain periods of deferment and forbearance. Last month, the Education Department indicated that it has approved $8.1 billion in new student forgiveness under the Limited PSLF Waiver Initiative. The changes made to the #PSLF program have been life-changing to so many people across the country, said Education Secretary Miguel Cardona in a tweet last week. Limited PSLF waiver ends in October, and borrowers could lose out on student loan forgiveness. While the limited PSLF waiver is seeing some success, it is also temporary, and will end on October 31, 2022. Barring an extension, the program would revert back to the original PSLF rules, which
barring an extension, right? So all summer long, we've, and going back all the way to the pandemic, they've paused the student loan repayment obligation. They've paused the accrual of interest while all this is going on, right? And they've been moving the goalposts month after month as the deadline was approaching, because the economy truly can't take the fallout if those things expired. So the can is being kicked. People, they're kicking the can. They're not ultimately solving the problem, but they're basically growing it because again, even with the accrual not happening, that principal is still sitting there. And once these things do eventually expire, then it's going to turn right back on, and folks are right back in the same hole that they were in. Not to mention, they've also, over that extended time frame, gotten used to and accustomed to not making student loan payments. They're using that money for other things. And when that payment kicks back in, you're going to have another bubble that pops and collapses because people aren't going to be prepared to pay it. They're not going to be ready to pay it. They're either going to be unemployed, thus making 0-month payments again, or they're going to be continuously employed as they were before all this, and they're going to be used to, I'll say, tentatively an increased lifestyle because they've had more discretionary income. But look at how that discretionary income has been completely eradicated by inflation and supply chain issues. Look at the gas pumps, for crying out loud. You're not making any headway. Whew, finally, I don't have any loan payments. Yeah, but now you're putting all that money in the gas tank. It's let's keep going.
Far more restrictive. Earlier this week, the Education Department released proposed new regulations for the PSLF program. The new rules would codify some elements of the limited PSLF waiver, including some additional flexibility for counting qualifying payments, and allowing for certain deferment and forbearance periods to count towards PSLF in limited cases. But the proposed regulations would not be nearly as broad or sweeping as the relief provided by the limited PSLF waiver. And the earliest the new rules would be effective would be in July 2023, leaving an 8-month gap between the end of the waiver and the enactment of new PSLF regulations. Last month, student loan borrower advocacy organizations called on the Biden administration to extend the limited PSLF waiver program beyond the October 31st deadline. Citing data suggesting the program may be underutilized, the Student Loan Borrower Protection Center, SPBC, urged the Education Department to push out the program's end date. "We've only scratched the surface of relief under PSLF," said SBPC Executive Director Mike Pierce in an earlier statement. Secretary Cardona needs to recognize that you can't have too much of a good thing. Extend the waiver now and deliver debt relief for millions in the future.
Okay, gotta object to that. Can't have too much of a good thing. You know, that's precisely, let me come back for this. That's precisely how the development of the federal direct student loan program was couched. Exactly. That's exactly how they positioned it to get the regs through to make the federal government the largest bank in America. Because you can't have too much of a good thing. If we cut out the middleman, i.e., the private banks, etc., and we lend directly to students, we can prevent fraud, guarantee the loans ourselves, and unlike the banks, we can just print the money so it never runs out. Can't have too much of a good thing. Let's wrap it up.
Top Biden officials send mixed messages on possible extension of PSLF waiver. Whether the Biden administration will extend the limited PSLF waiver beyond the October 31st deadline remains to be seen. At a student aid conference last week, Undersecretary of Education James Kavall said officials are looking at extending the waiver, but they generally view the new PSLF regulations as a better route for providing relief to borrowers. During a press call with reporters on Wednesday unveiling the proposed new PSLF regulations, Kaval was asked directly whether the Education Department is considering an extension of the waiver. "We are continuing to assess the PSLF waiver," he said. "My advice would be for borrowers to apply before October 31, 2022 to ensure that they get the benefits of the waiver. While some borrowers will get automatic student loan forgiveness under the limited PSLF waiver, other borrowers, in particular, borrowers with FFEL loans and borrowers who have not formally certified their public service employment, may need to take steps to qualify before the October 31 deadline. Borrowers can review limited PSLF waiver guidance via the Department of Education's website for an overview of the initiative."
Okay, so let's come back here. So what do we get out of all this? At the end of the day, if everyone who was eligible for this student loan debt relief did what they needed to do to be eligible for it and got the forgiveness, we're only talking about $8 billion of let's call it $1.8 billion of debt. Oh, check that. Rewind that. $1.8 trillion of debt. That 1.8, that 0.8 is billion, right? So they're saying we can cut this thing in half and leave just $1 trillion of student loan debt out there hanging around people's necks. You ain't helping nobody. And in fact, let me just go ahead and do this. I'll go ahead and do this. I'm going to pull it up. Let's go back to camera 2. And let's see. Let's go. Who has? I'm looking at the wrong one here. Let's get this. We're gonna look up and we're gonna see who has the most student loan debt in America. Let's go by race. June 13th. So this is current. Okay, let's look at this. Let me come back up here. Okay, let's take a look. Look at the stats on this. Black and African American college graduates owe an average of $25,000 more in student loan debt than white college graduates. 4 years after graduation, 48% of Black students owe an average of 12.5% more than they borrowed. Black and African American student borrowers are the most likely to struggle financially due to student loan debt, with 29% making monthly payments of $350 or more. 54% of all student loan debt is held by white and Caucasian student borrowers. Asian college graduates are fastest to repay their loan debt and the most likely to earn a salary that exceeds their student loan debt balance. For everybody who ain't Asian, but clap it up for the Asians, right? What does that mean? What does that mean? That means that Asian students, either because of cultural influence, parental guidance, what have you, Asian students are choosing majors that lead to the most lucrative careers opportunities. That's what that means. That means they're not majoring in underwater basket weaving. They're not majoring in criminal justice. They're not majoring in business administration. They're not majoring in communications. They're not majoring in marketing. They're choosing majors that lead to lucrative careers. And this is something we talk about here at Turn the Tassel all the time. You know, what major you decide on is critically important to your ability to not only repay student loans if you borrow them, which we encourage people not to and talk through strategies on how not to, but if you do borrow them, you choose a major that gives you the biggest shovel with which to fill the hole that you're digging by borrowing the money. Okay, let's look at the average student loan debt 1 year after graduation by race. Okay, Hispanic Latino, 21%, 29%, right? And here's the key down here shows you 9,999, basically under 10,000, 10,000, 24,000, 25,000, 40, et cetera, right? So you can see that proportionally, Asian students are borrowing less money and they're paying it faster. They're paying it back faster. Okay. 30%, 32, 27. So, I mean, you can see that. Okay. Let's look at monthly student loan payments by race. Okay. Look who's paying the least. Okay. $0 to $99, Hispanic Latino, 35%. Black and African American, 35%. Okay. Look at that number. That's $0 to $99. Translation: they're not making any progress towards paying off the loans. Translation: they can't afford it. They're not making any headway. So how does $8 billion towards public service folks who are making less money, how does that actually help? How does that help? Okay. Look at Hawaiian Pacific Islander, same. Right? Meanwhile, white and Caucasian, Asian, and American Indian, Alaskan Natives, right? These folks are in the lowest percentile of folks paying $0 to $99. Okay, they're paying their stuff off. Payment status of student loans for own education, okay, among borrowers under age 18 to 39, okay? Paid, current, behind. Asians, paid at 52%, current at 44%, just 5% behind. Black, only 11% of Black students have paid their student loans. Come on, man. 66% are current. Okay, is that a win? We'll say maybe it's a win. All right. But is it really? Because 66% are current, that means they're making payments even if their payment is zero under the income-based repayment program, right? And look at this, 23% are behind in their student loan payments. 20% of Hispanics are behind. Just 6% of white people are behind. So you have all these people out here advocating for these programs, talking about their merit and their value, et cetera, talking about their desire to help the underrepresented and underserved. Look at these numbers. How is this helping the underrepresented and underserved? It's not helping. Let's look at the cumulative amount borrowed on average for undergraduate study. We haven't gotten into grad study, but just look at undergrad. Okay? Who's borrowing the most? Who's borrowing the most? Blacks and African Americans. Okay? Who's next after that? American Indian, Alaskan Natives. Then you have white. Then you have Hispanic and Latino. Okay? They're borrowing the most. Look who's borrowing the least. Asians. Looks like American Indian and Alaskan Natives. Latinos. Whites. Okay? Look who's borrowing the most. African Americans, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. Okay, I don't know what's going on there, but suffice it to say, this is why underrepresented and underserved populations are continuing to struggle. Because in the name of helping, we're actually indebting and enslaving and harming. So I like to show these things. I like to be able to point out the reality of this stuff, because these are the things, I'll come back, these are the things that they don't talk about, that don't come up in the conversations when they're talking about student loan debt. And not just student loan debt, you could truly pass this along to several other programs that are out there to help people. It ends up being a trap. It ends up being a trap. And so what I want to encourage all of you to do is what I try to encourage you to do every time we come together. That is to reach out to us over here at Turn the Tassel Consulting Group. You can do so a couple of different ways. You can do so at our email at turningtassel@gmail.com. Give us the subject line, I need a plan. We will help you craft one. Or you can text us at 484-574-1866. Same subject line, I need a plan. And we will reach out to you. We'll get you a free consultation. Look at your circumstances, see what the best fit is for you. If you're looking to go to college, and frankly, help you to figure out a plan to take care of your student loan debt if you've already done that. Short of that, people, we're waiting for a miracle with student loan debt forgiveness, and I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. Not in a way that would make meaningful change. I'm Stephen Ampersand, and this is the Turn Tassel Show.